The Knoxville chapter of the American Red Cross calls it an historic treasure.
We were really thrilled to receive this.
Executive Director Boyd Romines admires the detail in this hand-knit sweater.
This was stitch by stitch.
Stitched, labeled, then shipped more than 60 years ago overseas by Knoxville volunteers to an unknown American soldier in World War II.
During the height of that process, about 8% of the whole U.S. population was doing that kind of volunteer work with the Red Cross, and they were almost all women.
In the same return package as this sweater was a letter.
My father never really spoke about his experience during the war, but he did consistently talk about how bitterly cold it was.
Red Cross worker Louis Keeling reads from the note written by the son of a World War II soldier.
I am returning this sweater as a way of saying thanks to the former members of the Knoxville chapter who cared enough about a boy from Brooklyn, New York, so he could stay warm in France. This sweater has completed its mission.
He's sending it back to us as a token of appreciation.
So he saw his share of action.
Yeah, my dad received a combat infantry badge, campaign ribbons for both the Rhineland and Ardennes, and he received the Bronze Star.
We tracked down the author of that note, Ted Hernich, in Briarwood, New York.
He was a grunt. He was an infantryman.
And he sent us these pictures of his father, who saw his first combat in World War II at age 19. But Ted knew little about his dad's service until a family friend interviewed the soldier-turned New York City firefighter for a school project.
The snow was so deep that guys were actually trying to go and find like bed sheets to use it as like snow camouflage so the Germans could not see them crossing across the fields.
Decades after those battles, this Army grunt from Brooklyn started to open up.
And he was a member of the anti-tank company, that he had been exposed to 100 days of consecutive combat. And, and he would talk about how when he went to Dachau that, you could still smell the remnants of the crematorium that they had been using up to the very last minute before the Americans arrived at the gates of the camp. One of the things my dad did tell us about his battles in Europe was how bitterly cold it was in the Colmar region.
And that's where this Knoxville-made sweater must have made a lifelong impression.
We were going through his belongings. This was in a box that had cedar blocks in it, and these clothes had probably not seen the light of day from probably 1946 or 47 when he got rotated out of the service. I looked at this sweater and I said, this must have been something that he constantly wore.
In 2009, after Ted's father passed away, his son felt this sweater, a symbol of selfless support, should go back to the place and the people who made it.
So I figured, why not? Maybe it's a way of saying thanks to the folks of Knoxville that did this work, over 60 years ago. And somebody went to the trouble of sending it to an unnamed, unknown American GI in Europe. And that was my dad. They didn't know him, but they did it anyhow because that's what people did back in those days. It was all for one for all.